Please read this disclosure. Thank you. Welcome to this CareCompass podcast. In this podcast, we are going to talk quite honestly about the hardest decisions families face around rehabilitation facilities, nursing homes, and care planning activities. In this episode, which is a bit different than what we've done before, we are going behind the scenes on actually why we built CareCompass in the first place and what happens when you try to use AI to help families choose a rehab facility in the middle of a crisis. If you've ever been handed a list of rehab centers and told, pick one by tomorrow, you already know this topic matters. People are making huge decisions about safety, recovery, and quality of life under intense time pressure, confusing data, and often very little guidance. We created CareCompass to be a calm, structured voice in that moment, not to replace doctors or case managers, but to give caregivers a clearer way to think, better questions to ask, and a little bit of grounding when everything feels urgent. So again, in this episode, I'm going to walk you through the good, the bad, and the ugly of building the applications itself. What works, what doesn't, and what we've learned about using GPT-style AI tools in such a sensitive part of healthcare. Let's talk about the problem itself. When someone needs short-term rehab, for example, after a stroke, a hip fracture, a big surgery, families are often asked to choose a skilled nursing facility in 24 to 72 hours. They get a list of names and perhaps a few recommendations. They might glance at online ratings, but what they don't get is a clear breakdown of inspections, staffing, and quality measures, tailored specifically to their parents' needs, and done in plain English, with concrete questions to ask while we are interviewing the facilities. I saw families making decisions based on such things as which facility had the shiniest lobby, or which one was closest to home, or where a friend's neighbor once went perhaps a century ago. And that's not their fault. The system is just not built for clear, calm decision making. So this became basically my aha moment, because I realized what was necessary and an approach to developing a system to help. I initially thought that, look, we have all this public data, we have these new AI models that can summarize, compare, and talk like a human. Why is there not a calm, structured guide that walks people through this decision? That idea became CareCompass, a GPT that asks you structured questions, helps you list the must-haves, nice-to-haves, and the deal breakers, compares facilities you select using data that you have, and gives you scripts and checklists so you don't walk into a tour or a phone call empty-handed without guidance. Let's take a brief pause And for a second, let me explain what a GPT actually is in normal human language. Technically, GPTs are current custom versions of ChatGPT. You give them detailed instructions, how they should behave, optional knowledge files like PDFs or guidelines, and you choose which skills they get. Things like web browsing or data analysis. Under the hood, it's still the same AI model, but instead of being able to give general answers, the bot, as it's called, is locked into a very narrow role. So CareCompass is really ChatGPT plus a very opinionated set of instructions, guardrails, a workflow design specifically for short-term and rehab and skilled nursing facility selection. In its development, I told it things like, you never give medical advice, you never give legal or insurance advice, only focus on helping people evaluate facilities using plain questions. You avoid sensitive identifiers like Social Security numbers or Medicare IDs. You always remind people to confirm decisions with their clinical team and get facility promises always in writing. So when someone talks to CareCompass, it doesn't behave like a random chatbot. It behaves like a checklist-driven advisor whose entire personality is calm, senior-friendly, blunt about red flags, and quite clear about its limits. How was CareCompass actually built? From a build standpoint, this was not a coding project at all. I spent most of my time writing and rewriting, a lot of rewriting, the intake template for the system. Its rules about what it can and cannot say, and the structure of the output. The must-haves, the nice-to-haves, and the deal breakers. Pros, cons, red flags, questions to ask, fit score, phone scripts, and visit checklists. In other words, the magic isn't just AI. The magic is forcing the AI into a very specific, hopefully boring, repeatable pattern that's actually useful in the real world. Let's start with the good. The things that honestly made me think, okay, this is worth the hassle to go through the development process. The first element we call clarity and chaos. When someone talks to CareCompass, it doesn't start with a lecture, which at this time is the last thing you may need. It starts with a simple, structured questionnaire. What are you looking for? Where are you located? How far are you willing to travel? What's going to happen after rehabilitation? Are you going to go back home into assisted living or not sure yet? What kind of clinical support do you need? Wound care, IV antibiotics, dialysis? What's the insurance situation? Do you have Medicare A, Medicare Advantage, something else? And what are your top 3 priorities for the evaluations? Inspections, staffing, distance, private room, discharge planning. Out of that, the system creates lists involving or including must-haves, nice to haves, deal breakers, all listed in plain English. People have told me that just seeing their situation organized like that takes their anxiety down a notch. Second element, you get better questions faster. Most families don't know what to ask of a facility. They may ask, is it nice? Is it clean? CareCompass automatically generates a phone call script that covers things like therapy intensity, weekend therapy, staffing levels, coverage, particularly at night and weekends. How do they handle discharge planning from day one? Transportation for dialysis or follow-up appointments. Is it available? Medication handling and communication with your primary doctor. It also spits out a 30-minute on-site visit checklist. Where to look, who to talk to, what's a red flag. Instead of staring at the phone thinking, what do I ask? You will have concrete lines you can literally read. The third element is consistency. Humans get tired, they forget things, they get rushed. On the other hand, GPT doesn't. It always asks about fall risk, checks for special needs like bariatric equipment or language support, and then reminds you to confirm things in writing from the facility. In healthcare, consistency perhaps is underrated. Having something that never forgets the checklist is indeed a big deal. Fourth is accessibility and tone. One thing I love about this format is that it's non-judgmental. You can ask basic questions. You can say, I have no idea what I'm doing, and the GPT just calmly walks you through it. For caregivers who feel talked down to or rushed in the hospital setting, that neutral patient tone is indeed a great relief. Let's take a look now at some of the bad characteristics of these systems. Indeed, there are real limitations, and when you use them, you'll see that some of them can be quite frustrating. First of all, it is not a clinician. CareCompass cannot see the patient, cannot read imaging, weigh in on whether someone is too medically complex for a certain facility, and so forth. Early on, I saw the model try to be too helpful. If someone said, do you think my mom could tolerate 3 hours of PT a day? It might start drifting toward an opinion. I had to slam on the brakes in the instructions. Absolutely no predicting rehab potential. Always direct those questions back to the hospital team. Always say, this is educational only. Secondly, data has a tendency of being, quote unquote, messy. Public ratings, inspections, and staffing data are helpful, certainly, but they are not perfect. They can be out of date. They might not reflect how a particular short-term rehab unit is doing today. So I had to train the GPT to be very humble about data, to treat it just as a signal, not as a verdict, to flag uncertainty and to push users to call the facility and confirm. Thirdly is user expectations. A lot of people understandably want a simple answer. Just tell me which place is best. But that's not really how it works. GPT gives a fit score from 0 to 10 with a short explanation, but that's based on what the user told it, plus whatever data they provide, the system itself provides. It's not a global ranking of all facilities. It's given your priorities. And this information, here's how well the facility seems to fit. That required a lot of explaining and expectation setting in the script and instructions. The fourth, prompt design whack-a-mole. Building this was not a straight line. I'd fix one behavior and say, stop giving medical advice, and then discover another issue. For example, answers getting too long or too abstract or forgetting to ask about insurance. So a considerable amount of work was put into testing edge cases, tightening the guardrails, and shaping the output so that it is practical in terms of being able to give checklists, scripts, and concrete next steps, and not just smart-sounding paragraphs. All right, let's talk about the ugly now. First, they hallucinate and gives a feeling of overconfidence. These models can sometimes make things up. Remember that. Or more subtly, over-infer based on limited information, right? That's a nice way of saying it. For example, if someone mentioned a facility name, the model might be tempted to fill in missing details based on patterns it's seen, and even if that information isn't up to date or verified. Obviously, that is unacceptable in this context and just about any other context. It's actually unbelievable what this does. So I had to be very strict. It may only use what the user provides, attach knowledge and data it can clearly cite. It must never invent facility-specific facts. If it doesn't know, it has to say, I don't know, and tell you how to find out. The second is overtrust of technology. I think we all suffer from that a bit. There's a real risk that someone thinks, well, AI said this facility is an 8 out of 10, so it must be safe. That's scary, a very scary thought. To counter that, I built the opposite into the so-called DNA of CareCompass. Constant reminders of decision support only, encouragement to question the output, prompts like, if your gut or your doctor disagrees with this ranking, explore that. Do not ignore it. I'd much rather someone argue with the tool than blindly follow it. Thirdly, liability and responsibility. Always be on guard for this. If a facility turns out to be a bad fit or has issues, who's at fault? The AI, the builder of the system, the user of the system? That's why I am adamant about saying explicitly what the tool cannot do, refusing to give medical, legal, or insurance advice, and constantly pointing back to the hospital team and case manager as the primary decision makers, or at least advisors. In other words, if a tool like this ever tells you you don't need to talk to your doctor about that, close the tab, fast. Fourth, designing for people in crisis. Very interesting one. And indeed, this might be the hardest part. Most people who use CareCompass aren't relaxed, sipping coffee, researching facilities months in advance. They are exhausted, scared, juggling work and family, maybe dealing even with guilt about putting a loved one in a facility at all. I had to constantly ask, is this overwhelming? Is this actually helpful in a 2 a.m. panic moment? Or am I just showing off what the AI can do? That's why I learned so hard into simple structure. I leaned so hard into simple structure and checklists. In a crisis, people do not need, nor do they want, a 2,000-word essay. They need 5 questions to ask right now and a sense of, okay, I'm not totally lost anymore. What did we actually learn from building CareCompass? On the product side, it became evident that one has to start with one very specific moment. Family needs to choose a short-term rehab facility within a few days. That was the given. Not fix healthcare, not reinvent elder care, make everything checklist-based and script-based. If the output can't be used in a real phone call or visit, it's probably fluff. Design for the most stressed version of your user, not the calm, idealized version. On the GPT technical side, you'll see that good instructions are everything. Keep it to narrow scope, hard, no boundaries, clear tone. Repetition helps. Must have, nice to have, deal breakers, pros, cons, red flags, questions, fit score. Phone script, visit checklist, verify in writing. Expect to iterate. Go back over this over and over again. You won't get it right on the first try, and probably not on the 5th either. On the ethics side, there is an ethics side. Assume people will overtrust the AI, so you must underclaim. That's what the system does. It underclaims. Make it easy and socially acceptable for users to say, I disagree with this ranking. Be transparent about what the tool can see and what it cannot see. If there's one overarching lesson, it's this. AI can be incredibly helpful as a decision scaffolding, but it should never pretend to be the decision maker, especially in healthcare. Here is the key takeaway. If you're in the middle of a rehab decision right now, here's what I would like you to remember. You do not have to do this alone, and you don't need to be a healthcare expert to ask the correct, good questions. Whether you use the system, a simple checklist, or an hour with your case manager, the goal is the same. Get clear on your must-haves. Ask direct questions about staffing, therapy, and discharge planning. Get all key promises in writing. I'm going to say it again. Get all key promises in writing. AI can help you organize your thoughts, but the real power is in your voice, your questions, and your advocacy for the person you love. If you've gone through choosing a rehab or nursing facility, good, bad, or ugly, I'd love to hear your story and what tools would have helped. Okay, let's wrap it up there. Thank you so much for spending this amount of time with us. If the episode helped you, please follow or subscribe and consider sharing it with a friend, sibling, or fellow caregiver who might be facing a rehab decision of their own. I'd love to learn what helped you and what didn't. Take care of yourself, keep asking good questions, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.